Yeah.
Good evening. This is the Guilford Board of Education. It is Thursday, January 29th. This is the second of two public forums on the budget that we are holding. Really encouraging and inviting the public to come to the Board of Ed meeting to address us on issues of the budget. We did hold our first meeting on this past Tuesday, our first public forum of the two that we hold every year this past Tuesday. This is the meeting that we had to reschedule from Monday due to snow. I am literally just going to kick us right off and into public forum. This is, we request that if you would like to address the board, that you come up to the podium. Please give us your name and address. There should be a pad of paper there. We do ask you to write that down as well. It helps the person taking minutes accurately record who you are. We ask that you keep your comments within 3 minutes. It gives everyone an opportunity to speak and makes it equitable across meeting forums. And so again, I welcome anyone who would like to address the board to come up to the podium.
Alyssa Stevens, 135 Millstone Drive. A recent opinion piece in the Connecticut Examiner titled "Connecticut Special Education System Failed the Test It Gave Itself" opens with this observation. For years, Connecticut proudly touted 5 consecutive years of federal meets requirements ratings for special education, gold stars all around, but recently the state received a very different report card. That report card is the West Ed report, and it confirms what families of children with disabilities have been saying for years. Compliance on paper does not translate into meaningful support in practice. Despite positive federal ratings, children are waiting longer for evaluations, services are being missed, and families are left to shoulder the burden, emotionally, financially, and legally. Families are paying out of pocket for speech therapy, behavioral supports, counseling, and academic interventions because districts cannot or do not provide what is required by law. Many parents are forced to become experts in special education law simply to secure basic services. Others give up not because their child's needs disappear, but because the system is overwhelming and inaccessible. That context is why this proposed budget is so troubling. The district is presenting a 7.13% budget increase, yet none of the district's service priorities consistently raised by parents are reflected. While I understand that many cost drivers are non-discretionary, it was disheartening to see that the most significant new addition is another special ed coordinator. Families advocated for additional speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, BCBAs, RBTs, social workers, and paraprofessionals, staff who directly serve students. None of those positions were prioritized. Instead, we are told the additional coordinator is justified by the number of PPT meetings, approximately 550 last year. Based on enrollment data and the fact that approximately 15% of students are identified, this means roughly 153 elementary students currently receive special education services. Even accounting for the minimum number of legally required meetings and the need for additional meetings in some cases, 550 PPTs is a very high number. It remains unclear whether any deeper analysis has been conducted to understand what is driving this volume. Without a clear understanding of these drivers, it is difficult to conclude that adding another coordinator would meaningfully address the underlying issues or align with projected needs over time. When reviewing Dr. Freeman's budget presentation, I also noticed that the proposed costs of providing full-day paraprofessional support is essentially the same cost as adding another coordinator. Faced with that choice, I would strongly advocate for full-day paraprofessional support because it provides direct intervention for students and may actually reduce the number of additional PPT meetings by better supporting students throughout the day. I am also deeply concerned about the proposed teacher reductions and the possibility of further cuts. Research dating back to the 1970s shows that reduced class sizes, typically 15 to 18 students, are associated with increased student achievement, particularly when implemented in the primary grades and sustained for more than 1 year. Studies also demonstrate that the benefits of smaller classes in the early grades are lasting, with gains in reading and math maintained for more than 5 years. Aiming for smaller class sizes across the district could help address inequities that parents have previously raised, allow more students' needs to be met through strong Tier 1 instruction, reduce reliance on Tier 2 and 3 interventions and special education services, and possibly impact teacher morale and job satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Polly Reader, 280 Sage Hollow Road. I spoke on Tuesday at the budget input meeting about a couple of opportunities for cost savings on transportation. And also new recent adding to the ever growing tremendous mountain of research about teens' need for sleep and the need for a later high school start time. Two very concerning, one in particular about suicide risk studies. So I wanted to come back to this because this is a budget input forum, but what I'm essentially asking for and what you've had parents and students emailing you and coming here to actually speak to you, and the girls stayed until after 10:30 that night to speak to you. I mean, right now we're asking for something that's no cost. We're asking for, a working group to look at what the specifics are. Do we know what the reasons are about why we can't have a later high school start time? Are there any good reasons? Are there facts? I mean, I don't feel like we know what those are. I think it would be really helpful to have a working group. And it would essentially be using the expertise and the political savvy of our administration, of our superintendent, and his team to look at this. I mean, are we gonna just let it wait and wait and wait? And we have a new superintendent at some point? That's not gonna be a better situation to do this. And I think the parent awareness is so much higher with regard to this since way back in 2017. And I think the minority of elementary parents back then who didn't like the idea of their kids at that time swapping schedules, those kids are now in high school. And I guarantee you, if you ask them, the vast majority would feel differently now. The science is so much more larger and more firm even than on the cell phone policy. And you guys have people coming up and saying time and again, they're here on another topic. Thank you for what you do on the cell phone policy. Thank you. And so many of those parents are also saying, geez, why wasn't they ever they start time before? They're doing this on the cell phone policy. Why don't they fix that? Like, that's a much bigger problem. That's what is needed for the kids' mental health, for their learning. I mean, brain connectivity, better recovery rate for athletic injuries, et cetera, and et cetera. So I really feel like, and when we were talking about the cell phone policy before, it said, we're not going to get it perfect the first time. It's not a panacea. We know that start time and fixing high school start time is a panacea. It touches everything.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up and address the board in public forum tonight? All right. We do have, we can carry on a little bit from our conversation on Tuesday. I do know Mrs. Trudeau, thank you so much, provided us, and I'm really looking at my phone to pull up the email because I didn't have a chance to open it, but you provided us with some responses. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at those.
We're also very happy to walk through those tonight.
Great.
Just interrupt for 1 second. I
Sure.
apologize. There is a member of the community that reached out to me tonight who's performing shortly downstairs with the town band.
Okay.
And she did want me to put forward to the board what she would have come and testified to. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So this constituent is interested in seeing the Guilford School District do what's been done in the bigger districts around and putting cameras on buses to catch people that are going through the stop signs and endangering the children who are getting on school buses.
Yeah, we heard public comment about that at
Okay.
a fairly recent meeting. Actually, it would have been one of the earlier budget meetings. We
I
had-
think
Yes,
so. I
yep.
think we did. So
Okay.
it was just to reiterate that. I apologize. I didn't want that to go.
No,
No,
I'm glad
that's
she got to
great.
have that entered in. Yeah.
No, we should absolutely have that entered in, and, if, you know, we're gonna also, and I will repeat this, from Tuesday night as well. We certainly encourage, community members, parents, anyone who is interested in, addressing the board is unable to be here tonight or was unable to be here on Tuesday, to reach out to us. Our email addresses are all on the Guilford Public Schools website. So we certainly welcome, input from people who aren't able to come. This is an opportunity for people to do it in person, but in no way does that mean we don't want to hear from people, who cannot be here. So do we want to first go through those budget? And Linda, thank you so much for responding to that. So we have a breakout of a number of the textbook purchases, textbooks to be purchased. This is what's reflected on page 84 of our budget book. So this is really helpful. It gives us language arts, science, nutrition, social studies, microeconomics, social studies, world history, and geography, modern times. EL text for Adam, social studies for Baldwin, elementary various titles for each school, and district social studies, grade 7 to 12.
And Dr. Bell Tracy.
Yes, please.
Built into that, or building off of that, we will also, on Monday night, what we will be suggesting is that we believe it would be prudent to talk about the entire 237,000 attached to the district-wide social studies change
Okay,
as a possible deferral. Holding on to the balance of approximately 63,000 would allow us to meet the building level needs, and that would cover both those consumables that we discussed, as well as you see isolated at the top, purchases for courses, including new courses at the high school. And so we will be suggesting that we talk about a possible reduction of 237,500
okay,
out of the textbook line. We can defer that social studies investment for a year. That is a reasonable deferral, but by holding on to the 63,000, we meet all the building level needs that we were talking about on Tuesday evening as well.
okay. Great.
And that deferral of the 237K is strictly just books. They're upgrades. So these are not new courses. This is just new material.
It's just updating what we have.
Okay.
New texts that would be tied to the curricular renewal, but we will be fine with the text that we have. And
Wonderful.
remember that our teachers supplement heavily. And so, yes, it's a deferral that we're prepared to absorb. Yeah.
Number 2, cost of Chromebooks, page 94 of our budget book. The Chromebooks purchase is for the second grade levels of the elementary, grades 5 and grade 9. The amounts are based on 966 Chromebooks at $410 each, because that was a question that came up.
Right. And it's a little confusing, Dr. Bell Tracy. It's for 2 grade levels at the elementary schools as well as 5 and.
Oh, sorry, I
so-
didn't say that. Thank you
Yep,
for that
so
correction.
it's 4 grade levels,
Yep.
and at that number, the
Right.
cost per unit is $410 for each of the Chromebooks that we'd be replacing.
Okay.
And remind us again, I think Kevin said that the 410 isn't just for the device, but there's other things that go with them. Was that correct?
There's a Google license per machine. It could run anywhere between $20 and $30, depending on, the overall deal that's worked.
Is there any like software that you have to purchase to come with that, or is that something that's built into the?
Now the rest of it's there.
Okay.
And those last us.
Oh, there is,
5 years each.
We do factor in a little bit for a sleeve,
Okay.
just a little.
A carry.
sleeve.
Yeah.
Chromebook.
And,
Seems like a smart idea.
and yes, the Chromebooks are on a 5-year renewal cycle, Kevin.
The Chromebooks are more of a 4.
Okay,
We'll
thank
stretch
you.
them to 5. The laptops are on a 5.
Thank you.
And on the topic of deferral, what's the impact here if we defer this a year?
So it's important to note that savings would only be,
It's a capital lease. I understand.
Yes.
There's not it's not the whole chunk of
right,
$396,000 that we're absorbing in this year's budget, but just out of, again, we're gonna talk about deferral a lot, so.
it means that we would be not replacing the Chromebooks in this year. We would be taking this whole cohort of Chromebooks that would end up getting 1 year older than any of the others before we swap them out. It's,
Fifth and ninth grade would be kind of a mess. And I think I had mentioned the kindergartners are using a different device, using a tablet.
Right.
We haven't been able to rotate anything in there because it's an oddball. And those devices need to get replaced, and
it ends up with
there's
us
a
then.
life on a Chromebook too, so they hit a certain age, and then we can't do the state testing on them or any of the formal testing because of the OS version. It requires a certain piece of software, and that'll only run on a certain level. So we try to tend, if we do have them that get that old, we push them into grade levels that don't do testing. But there's a lot of testing in a lot of different grade levels now, so it's getting tougher.
Okay.
Can I add something? So the other thing to keep in mind is if we take that almost 400,000 out of the lease, one, we may risk
We won't have a lease.
having somebody not want to do
Yeah.
it, or if we do it, we're probably gonna have a much higher interest rate.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Those are important, right?
with- with
Absolutely.
the-
Yeah.
With the lease.
Thank you.
No, helpful context, thanks.
So Linda, with the lease, is this something that is like a sum total of this 635,000? And like, do we finance that? Like, or are they in, like, do we have a contract with a Chromebook provider? Do we have a contract with a server provider? Like, are each of these individual, or why are, like, it sounds like just now you're talking about them as one entity, like the leased entity.
So the way it works is we purchase the equipment. So we have state contract pricing for the Chromebooks. We buy all the equipment that's listed in the lease. We own it outright all the time. It's not like you lease a vehicle at the end of the 5 years, you turn it back. So it's just a financing mechanism to spread out the cost of that equipment over 5 years.
So it's like a relationship with a bank.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes,
And this sum total, this 26-27 lease amount of 635 is all one contract with one singular financial provider?
yes.
Okay.
I will contact a couple of different financial institutions, ask them for what their rate would be on a lease of that amount. And then choose the lowest one for the best
How
deal.
much
for
would
us.
we defer on the lease? Before we put the lease in jeopardy? So for example, if we decided to do half of the Chromebooks.
I can't answer that for certain. I never know what they're going to, the leasing companies are going to want to do. We've had a couple companies that we have used in the past that will no longer
Yeah.
touch
Right.
a $500,000-600,000 lease. They only want $1 million or higher.
Yeah,
I don't
we expect
even
higher
know.
rates.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
right.
know for certain if anyone of the, down to 2 companies really that either one of would want to do this.
And that's what we've been down to, right, for the last couple of years, right? We've had to talk about the fact that we only have 2 companies as viable options because others have backed out.
Right.
Sorry. go ahead.
No, that's fine. We have, what, 4 concurrent leases right now?
We're always running 5. Well, we might have only 4. 'cause
As we pay off the 5th one, we
Fifth
bring
one,
on,
right.
Yeah.
bring on another.
exactly right.
I heard you say something about a state contracted place to purchase the Chromebooks, is that correct?
The state puts out, the
But the
state,
state bids, the state bids.
the state puts out a list of pre-approved bids, and it includes everything from custodial supplies to instructional materials and Chromebooks. And so rather than putting a bid out, we have purchased the items on that list that essentially have been pre-bid with vendors by the state.
We also have other consortiums that have bid out things already that we can piggyback off of. So it usually brings us the better price without us having to do the bids.
Gotcha.
And because it's these larger companies, they do it in a bigger volume, so they get better prices.
I just know that historically, because as a state employee, I've seen, we have a WB Mason book for supplies, that the prices are significantly higher than the private citizen books. So there is a markup when you start dealing with state and big contracts like that. So that's why I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that
it's
we're trying to get the best price.
looked at a couple different ones. We've used the Pepin contract.
Pepin's
We've
got the
used,
best pricing. on a
Yes,
yearly basis, but
yeah, Pepham's
when you
not,
do a deal with 966 devices,
right.
there's a volume discount too. It's, it opens eyes when you give them that number and you get to talk to different people.
All right. Number three, clerical building salaries, the change in the FTE count, so page 43. Is this a helpful way to do this?
Yes.
Together?
Mhm.
Okay, just making sure as I. Page 43.
Yeah, we thought there was a discrepancy
And
here.
43, and we almost need to talk about 3 and 4 together.
So 43, the change in the FTE count is due to elimination of the 1.0 FTE district FOIA clerk receptionist, offset by the reclassification from paraprofessional salaries of a 0.5 FTE office clerical support.
Put that into English.
Yeah, so the two things happened. One is that we eliminated a clerical position at central office.
You can see that 2/3 of the way down the page.
The second item is that as some cleanup work with the clerical para union, as we went through the contract renewal, we were filling of positions that were euphemistically being referred to as office paras, but it was not a position that existed in the contract. So rather than hiring somebody as a paraprofessional and placing them in the office doing clerical work, I just reassigned those positions, and what would have been called office paras are now being filled with part-time clerical positions. So it's a 0.5 reduction to para, but a 0.5 increase to clerical counts.
That's the line just below that, FOIA clerk.
Yep. Are there any other questions related to that?
Well, the next one is related to number 4, the paraprofessionals.
Right.
Page 47.
Yes.
Yep, so, that was a question that I was right. Okay, page 47, paraprofessionals. Paraprofessional salaries, 5 full-time equivalent FTE paraprofessionals were added to date during the 25-26 base year based on student needs. So the current year we're in. This increase is offset by the reclassification of the 0.5 FTE office clerical support that we were just talking about.
So this was an oversight in that this should have been included in my slide deck and it wasn't. So as we discussed last year, when we talked about reducing para positions, we can reduce the budget count of para positions, but when those para positions are tied to special ed needs, we're going to fill them as needed. We have filled 5 positions, 5 para positions this year that were not in the budget. And when I made my public presentation, I failed to note that difference going forward. So we will correct that in every future presentation moving forward. I do believe, however, and we're going to have some conversation about possible para reductions again this year. So we need to note this as a starting place. It explains the page in your book. And if we make changes in the next couple of board meetings to this budget that impact the para line, we will net those out and make sure that we call those out in presentations going forward.
So, sorry, the numbers still
Yeah.
don't add up
numbers are
though.
off.
yeah.
So, let me just clarify. So we
Where
have
are the-
97.5 to start the year. That was what was approved in the budget. And you
Added
how
5
many?
after that,
Added 5 after that?
and then 0.5 went over to clerical. So, is that right? So that's why we have a 4.5 difference. So 97.5 is what we started the year with. 5 were added and that number isn't here anymore. And then 0.5 was moved, moved to page 43.
Right.
So that's why we have an increase essentially of 4.5.
Okay. Yeah, and that
Is
does
that-
come out to 102.
Have I said,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it does come out to 102.
all right.
I apologize for the convolution of the convolutedness of that, and I apologize for not calling that out in the public presentation on the slides 2 weeks ago.
It's definitely, this isn't a complaint, but I think what's challenging is when we have to do this, and we know this happens, right? We've had to add a kindergarten class
2 this year.
fall, right? once a budget is done, once we have, when we have elevated enrollment that we didn't expect. But when we're doing approved budget from last year, right,
To
and
approved
current,
budget.
those things get lost somehow.
Yes.
So we just have to figure out how to. Okay,
And that
thank you for the
illustrates-
answer to that question.
And it does go to illustrate a question that was asked, right? When we build the budget, we build it on FTE projections in all areas. But ultimately, the dollars have been put into the budget and then the FTEs are assigned or not as necessary. There have been years where we have budgeted for 12 kindergarten classrooms and then only enrolled 11. And we don't then fill that 12th classroom. Most recently, we have had experiences this school year where we had to add 2 additional kindergarten classrooms that require staffing.
Right,
And this example, we've added 5 additional para positions because of student needs that have been identified.
thank you. Number 5, SRO safety monitors and school monitors, pages 49 and 77. The budget for the 3 SROs is $139,050 or $46,350 each. And again, we share the expense of those SROs.
Right, a Guilford police officer
Right.
makes significantly more than $46,000. That's our contribution
That's
to
our
each salary.
contribution, right. The budget for the 4.0 FTE safety monitors is $162,328 or $40,582 each. The budget for the 4.0 FTE school monitors is $85,036 or $21,259 each. And the safety monitor / crossing guards line also includes 2 crossing guards for $19,465. These costs are offset by $15,000 of student parking fees. So that's a breakdown for pages 49 and 77 with FTEs.
There's also a question about data related to what the SROs do, what duties they perform in the schools. We had a principals meeting earlier today and we were able to have that conversation with the principals. So again, I'd start by noting that the first reason for the SROs to be in the schools is they are there to be part of the physical hardening of our schools. And so rather than hiring, for instance, 7 armed security guards, which other communities have chosen to do, we agreed with the town that it would be better to use uniformed armed police officers. We have not moved to a point where we have 7 uniformed armed police officers. So we have 3 officers who patrol the 7 buildings. Now that's gone from 1 officer, then to 2, now up to 3 who patrol the 7 buildings. So while that does not give you full coverage for the entire school day, it gives you much more coverage than we would have with 1 or with 2 SROs. The patrols are unscheduled, they're periodic. We don't want the patrols to be predictable. And so the 3 officers move between and among the schools at various rates and at various times. But what it means is that very often the public will see a marked police car and a uniformed police officer in our schools. Beyond that, then we move into a community policing model. Beyond that, the idea of the SROs is to be in the schools, getting to know the students, interacting with teachers, interacting with students. They're a visible presence during drop-off, pickup, recess, lunchtime. At times, the principals will invite the SROs to speak to a parent or speak to a student when there is a challenging situation. That is done with students only with parental permission. So again, we don't have the number of police calls that have been made that the SROs have responded to. It is this idea of community policing. When we had the conversation, I'm going to hold that one. That one was about the safety monitors. The principals are very invested in maintaining the 3 SRO positions. We then talked about the safety monitors. The safety monitors, there are 4 positions. The structure that we moved to when we wanted to reduce the expense of the monitor positions was to maintain safety monitors for groups of 500 students. So there are 2 safety monitors assigned to the high school, 1 to Adams and 1 to Baldwin. These are full-day positions. They are on top of the existing positions. And these are individuals who are visible during drop-off, visible during pickup, moving through the halls. They're an additional set of eyes. They're an additional set of ears that report back to the principals. When we had the conversation today about the safety monitors, one of the principals' response was, please don't take them away. They are a resource that the principals rely on. It's not somebody to cover a class. It's not a substitute teacher. It's somebody to be in the halls and moving through the space. The school monitors are paid at a lower rate. And what we did with the school monitors was we took essentially one of the recess lunch monitor positions and simply asked one of those positions to come in early and stay all day. So rather than just coming in for the 2 or 3 hours around lunch and recess periods, they come in from the beginning to the end of the day. And again, it's an extra adult who's in the building, moving through the hallways, visible at arrival, dismissal, lunch, and recess. It's important to note for those that eliminating those positions, we would still need the recess portion of that. So we would save half of those salaries. We wouldn't save the whole salary by eliminating those positions. But to an individual, the principals have come to rely heavily on the monitor positions, and they are very invested in the SRO positions as well. And again, I'll note all of those positions. We had another conversation today. Those are all part of our layered safety and security system. So it starts with the physical hardening of the buildings themselves. We have reconstructed every front entrance. We've replaced almost all of the first-story glass. We have updated both exterior and interior locks in all of the buildings. Part of it has gone into, part of the layers is hardening the physical plant. There's then the training that the teachers go through every year. There are the drills that the students participate in every year. There are the positions like these that we've increased significantly over the last few years. We've tripled the number of police officers. We've added the monitor positions. On top of that, we have systems that we use, things like Sandy Hook Promise, things like the Lightspeed software, things like Zero Eyes that we run. We have the security cameras. We have collaborative training that we do with the police and fire departments. It's all part of those layered systems to try to ensure that we're providing the safest environment that we can provide. This is just one small part of all of that.
Question for you on the monitors at the elementary schools.
Yes.
When we were having this conversation this time last year, we were struggling to find bodies to fill recess and lunch aid positions. And one of our hopes was that if we extend a few of these to a full day position, that that would alleviate that problem, that we would in fact have more people willing to come in. Has that happened?
Yes, these 4 positions are more stable and easier to fill than the 3-hour middle of the day positions. Yes.
I'm gonna,
There's the dramatic music.
yeah, the dramatic is.
On recess.
I'm gonna take a pause. If there is a member of the public who has come in since we started talking, this is a public forum. We did hear a couple of comments at the beginning and then had no more requests, so started talking. If there's a member of the public who has joined us since that time and wanted to make a public comment, I do want to pause to give that opportunity. Is there anyone who would like to do that? Okay, I just wanted to give that opportunity. All right. Number 6, there are 2 more items that we were given more information on. So number 6 is athletic coaches, page 39. Athletic coaches are not counted as FTEs as they are stipends. The number of coaches is determined by the athletic director based on the sport and the number of students participating, which I think means could change
Yeah.
on a yearly basis,
And we've
what
just-
you're telling me.
Yeah, we've just never given counts for the stipends in the same way that we've given counts for FTEs. It is something we could do in the future, but it would be a projection.
Okay,
If a team does enroll a larger number, we may add an additional assistant coach position for supervisory purposes. This number can also be impacted at times by activities taken by booster clubs. And
Right.
so if the boosters offer to cover one of these stipends, we sometimes don't expend those dollars.
okay.
Is there any way we can get what the numbers were this year, at least, so we
Yes.
have an idea
Yeah,
of what
we-
we're talking about?
Yeah, we can give you a count, and it would be a projection, but we can give you a
Right.
count of where we are for sure.
Can't imagine they change dramatically.
They
from year
don't,
to
we've
year.
just
Yeah.
never enumerated them the way we have
Yeah.
FTEs, so that's the answer for why that page doesn't have
Yes.
counts, and we can have counts to you for your Monday meeting.
And I guess the same could be said if it's page 40, the same thing, there's co-curricular salaries. I believe those are stipends as
Mhm.
well.
Yes,
Just a general idea of numbers of people who
Yep.
receive those would be.
right, we
It
can
would
do
be
that on Monday.
helpful.
Sometimes I say yes, and then somebody else has to actually do the legwork.
Oh,
so
That Linda
I'm Just
will
trying to
keep you on
check,
it.
I'm just trying to check on our timelines. I don't.
I'll make it up to you, Linda.
And then number seven bonding, we heard Tuesday night a little bit about the Adams special roof replacement, so this is a little more information. The costs were obtained by having the roof condition surveyed by a contractor. The contractor also confirmed the square footage that needs to be replaced. An asbestos company was also brought in to review the project. The project cost was estimated based on the information from the two companies. Final costs will be obtained when the project goes out to bid, if the bonding is approved at referendum.
And remember, we've had experience in both ways. Often,
Right.
Mr. Gurnham does a very good job, and we often get bids that come in below what we have set as a budget number. In two recent experiences, with a tennis court
Tennis
project
court,
recently, and a number of the work that was estimated at $595. Because we estimated it and then waited several years before putting it out to bid. In both of those cases, we missed. We came in over the budget and needed to make adjustments to move forward.
Okay, so that was terrific. Thank you for the answers to those questions. We are in an opportunity if people have more questions, comments, items, specific budget items that they want to kind of bring up as a topic of conversation. I'm opening the floor to that. Go ahead.
In terms of the instructional coaches,
Yes.
so the salaries are not broken out here. I know they're included in the particular schools that they're in. But my question is that they have a salary,
Yes.
but then my understanding is they also get a stipend on top of the salary.
Correct.
So it's kind of twofold. Number one, does everybody get the same stipend? And is that contractual? And number two, what is the purpose of the stipends?
Yes and yes. So every coach or specialist receives the same stipend. It is part of the negotiated contract with the Teachers Association. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, it's a stipend that has been frozen for the next contract. So while athletic coaching stipends are going to go up 5% each year in this 3-year contract, while co-curricular stipends are going to go up 3% each year of this new contract, that coaching stipend is held. On Monday evening, as we talk about possible reductions, when we talk about the possibility of coaching positions being reduced, we will be giving you a budget number that includes a first-year teaching salary and the stipend as the budget number. Instructional coaches are teachers by teacher contract. They get paid the same salary that any other teacher would be paid based on their years of experience. Many of them, because they're coaches, tend to be at the higher end of the salary scale, but not every one of them is at the absolute top step of the salary scale. So again, if we eliminate a coaching position, we would eliminate a salary because of contractual vehicles related to reduction in force and seniority. It wouldn't mean taking somebody at the high end or at the top step and removing that salary absolutely. A coach who stops coaching would likely move into a classroom position, and then the way the contract works, it would likely be a very a relatively new teacher who steps off, but the stipend would be saved, a coach who moves from coaching into a classroom. So we will be using a budget number for any of those reductions, and we'll have that number when we go into that conversation on Monday. The stipend has been associated with the coaching positions since they were first introduced in Guilford before my time, when there were only 3 coaches in the Guilford Public Schools and when coaching was less popular, less prominent around the state. The stipend is there for essentially 3 reasons. To acknowledge and recognize that the coaches often work beyond or outside the regular contract hours. They're expected to provide more availability to Dr. Goss's office. They may be meeting with teachers before or after school, and because they're supporting all the teachers, that happens more regularly. They may engage in supportive work that happens over the summer. Portion of it is for that. Portion was for talent, right? We wanted to make sure that we were attracting the best talent. And we had and for a long time, the coaches were hired out of district and coming in. When we hire a coach, we look for somebody who has experience with adult instruction as well as being a really good classroom teacher. So I have been in other districts a long time ago now, but I've been in other districts where the coaching model was to just pick the best teacher in the school, call her coach, and ask her to go out and make everything better. We never did that. We always had a structured coaching model. We always had training for the coaches, and we always looked for experience with adult learning before we put them into that position. And then the third component was the idea of elevating the profession, that if we are going to rely on master teachers, we wanted to recognize their time. We wanted to attract the strongest talent. And then we wanted to do something to that position that did in fact bring credibility to that position, because they're expected to lead the other teachers through their own professional learning in the building. So that was the rationale for the stipend. It has been there since the positions were first approved by the board, before any of us were part of this. And then it has been attached to those positions moving forward. And again, because it's a relatively large stipend, it has grown with percent increases. So with the Teachers Association this year, we agreed to freeze it at the number it's at rather than growing it an additional 3% for the next 3 years of this contract.
It's hard for, I'm just gonna put this out there, because I think this is the things that a lot of us are struggling with, where they're not administration, but they're not really teachers either. Like, they almost need their own subcategory, if there was a way of putting it in my,
Well, but
I get where you're coming from, because they are teachers and they're teaching, they're just.
No, but
teaching a different group.
I understand and agree with what you're saying, but I would say you could also say that to a large degree about special education teachers, about school psychologists, about school social workers, about school counselors. There are so many members of the teacher contract that aren't the traditional classroom teacher that everybody thinks about, and that many parents will come to that podium to speak about. There are so many other teachers, that the interventionists that we've talked about, the coaches that we are talking about, but also those school psychs, those school social workers, OTs, PTs, speech language pathologists. Those are all teachers who don't carry a classroom assignment the way we picture when we say 355 teachers in Guilford Public Schools, they're not all the classroom teachers that we all think about and love so much. There's a lot of the team who sits behind the scenes.
Yeah, but these are the only ones that don't touch our kids.
No,
And so that I think that for me is my sticking point, right? Like, I think that's why I have such a hard time wrapping my brain around it.
so they are the professional educators, but through helping every teacher be better, they touch every kid in the school that they are assigned to. And yes, I get it. I totally get it. But I think there's another, there's another side to it. There's another way to think about what the coaching impact is.
I should know.
Other topics, other questions?
Can you remind us again how you came to the 34% increase for the electricity? Was that based on forecasting from the provider in terms of rate increases, or?
In broad strokes, it's having to correct for being so dramatically under budgeted last year. Last year, electricity costs increased after we had locked in the budget. So part of it was catching up to a shortfall from last year's number, and then adding the increases for the projected increase for this year.
So we look at what our actual spending was, we look at our usage. And we take all that into account as we build the budget for electricity.
And just in case there's anyone who didn't understand that, catch-up does not mean we are projecting to pay for last year's electricity.
No, yes, we paid all of our bills.
It is right. It is simply
Also-
to identify what the actual cost was last year and then build the anticipated increase on top of that.
Yes, and the actual expenditure last year was above the
Right,
number we
right.
had budgeted, creating
Significantly above, which
creating
I
that.
think we all saw in our homes as well.
Yeah, it goes back to your earlier point about budget to budget number.
Yeah,
When the
yeah.
budget number from last
Right.
year is
Exactly
under,
right.
we have a larger increase to first catch up and then account for the other increases we anticipate for this coming year.
So
Did you have I wanted to make sure your question got answered in that.
I think it did.
Okay.
You know, it's 34% overall, but it's the Guilford High School numbers. Very large compared to the other numbers. It's like
Sure.
94% or something like that. So I just was curious.
So the high school, there was a energy project that was done at the high school, which is resulting in some savings, but we have to pay that back. We are paying back, it comes out to just under $75,000 a year for that energy project. So that's $75,000 on top of the cost increases that the high school had from the previous year is where we got our budget for this year.
How long do we have to be paying that 75,000?
Not sure the actual length of that. I can double check it.
Dick, were you gonna ask a unrelated or another question?
I think just for public clarification, it's been mentioned, and we went through it last year. We cover unanticipated expenses out of the existing budget. And some people have tried to make the case that we budget too much money and therefore we have money left over. As I did the analysis, in the last 5 years, we've had a minuscule amount of surplus each year. I mean, actually too close to for comfort. And so that a good budget has some unpredictability, but you have to predict what that might be, which we do. So it turns out that we were able to pay for electricity last year because we took it from other places. If everything we predicted came true, then we would really have been in trouble in
Yes.
terms of, but some people have criticized us for saying that we've somehow built in huge surpluses into our budget. If that were true, we'd be carrying over a lot of money each year and we'd be able to use it this year. We just don't do that. And you might want to comment about that.
No, I think that's right. When we're talking about a budget that over the last several years, we're talking about 75, 76, 77 million dollars in the budget. And at the end of most fiscal years, we're returning an unused balance that is 5 or in the low 6 figures. The one exception to that in recent experience was the pandemic year when we closed schools in March. And in that year, we returned some $350,000, $400,000 of unexpended funds because our expenses were enormously curtailed at the end of the
But even
year.
at that, that's 0.5% of our
I was
budget,
just gonna say.
which is
Right.
any chief financial officer will say that if you don't have at least 1% or 2% wiggle room, you're irresponsible. So we're so close to the margin to begin with. It's not like we're playing with money floating around.
No, we budget very tightly. We watch the budget very carefully as the school year rolls out. As we see individual line items that are going over budget, we are paying attention. And there have been many, many years where we have instituted budget freezes. So we have curtailed spending intentionally of approved items in the budget mid-year to make sure that we will have the money to cover the overages and then again come in with very small returns at the end of the school year.
But all that's to say, that only makes budgeting this year harder because we don't have any fat.
That was going to be my next point. If we had turned back if we had turned back $500,000 of unexpended funds last year, we would be able to use the actual expenditures because the actual expenditures are so close to the actual budget. The increases this year force us to ask for 7% more rather than being able to take it out of, elevated or escalated lines from last year. That's exactly right.
I'm just gonna give the other side of that and why people think it's padded. And from what I'm hearing, again, from constituents is that, we trudge along, we have our budget, we're paying our bills, we do all this, and in the last 2 months, it's like a massive spend. Right? And some of that is, you push things off, maybe like textbooks, and at the end of the year, you're like, oh, I have this extra money, let me go spend the textbooks. But the public perception of that is, and that's where it's coming from, is, oh, but then you obviously padded your budget so that you can do that. So that's the perception out there with some of the.
But there isn't.
There isn't a
isn't
massive spend.
massive cut. So that's also based on, no, but I want to be clear as we talk about this. You seem to be describing a perception of what people are seeing, and what I'm saying is that's actually not true. We don't do a massive spend at the end. There are no lines where that,
We see it every month.
right.
We see the percentages on every single line
So
item.
there isn't that massive spend doesn't happen, that there are transfers that happen. There is occasionally a spend on a piece of equipment where we say, oh, we can do this, but there's not a massive spend at the end of the year.
And there are some controls in place. Building principals are told that they should not spend their entire budget in September. We want them to spend half of the budget and then hold, because and when there is a big purchase like textbooks, we will intentionally hold that until the back half of the year, not until June. We don't run around in a flurry on June 15th trying to unload unused money. But if there's a big purchase, we would rather hold it to the end of the year, make sure that the budget didn't have any holes that burst that need, like tuition or something else that needed to be filled. And then when we know that we're secure, we release that purchase. But even with that practice, I would argue that if you looked at our financials for May and June, you won't see escalated purchasing that happens.
The only thing that you may see in June is because we put constraints on our site improvement line.
Yes,
That's usually one we hold off until we know that we're gonna be okay. We don't allow him to do projects, and then he'll do those projects over the summer. So he'll issue the purchase orders May, June, when we give him the okay to do it. So you'll see that kind of spending at the end of the year, but it's usually nothing other than maybe some equipment that we held off on.
No, but I'm glad to
Putting it
raise
out
it
there,
because I do think that people think there is this big spend that happens. So I appreciate the opportunity to respond to that.
other question.
Transportation? It's such a big increase this year. If we wind up not using, if gas prices go down, like, is there any way that it doesn't wind up being $438,000?
The fuel's
So
down.
that's not even fuel.
Yeah, we're projecting the fuel to be significantly.
You almost
down.
buried in a different line.
Yeah,
So
It's just
that's the new contract.
no,
We did bid out fuel, and the fuel prices went down for 26, 27 from what we're paying for this year.
And that's locked in for the year.
And that's locked in for the year. We already have a contract for July 1.
That's built into this budget.
Yeah.
and I do want to speak to the bus routes as they are currently drawn. The bus routes factor in a mathematical scale. So we know that not every student rides the Guilford buses. We do not maintain a seat for every child in Guilford. If there was any one day where every child went outside to ride the bus, we would be overcrowded. We have built the runs to assume a ridership significantly lower than 100% ridership. And so we are required to provide transportation for any student who requests it, and at any time. You cannot tell a student that if you don't sign up for transportation in September, you have given away that right for the entire school year. A child who drives to the high school today could get on a school bus tomorrow, and we have to have that bus available for that student tomorrow. If everybody made that same decision, and if the parking lot were empty tomorrow morning, our high school buses would be overloaded. We have assumed less than 100% ridership in the drivers that we hire and the buses that we run.
Is there any way where a parent could elect to opt their kid out? Like, I imagine at the high school, juniors and seniors are never getting on the bus.
No, no, and
And is
that's,
it like a law that we can't allow parents to say, like, I'm at the end of a cul-de-sac, if you're not coming down my street to bring my senior to school, you're saving that 1 mile, half a mile in, half a mile out, is that?
we may poll them and we may ask them that question. But again, if that child wants to ride the bus tomorrow,
Mhm.
we are required to provide that bus to them. You can't, right, you can't say in August, this is this year's bus roster, sign up for it or not. And if you don't sign up for it, we can't tell you to wait for the next opt-in window.
I guess my question is more of an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in, so you
No.
can't even say like, okay, I know my kid's never getting on that bus. It's gonna cost a driver 5 minutes to drive down my street, wait for my kid's never getting on it. There's no way to collectively say, if you know your kid's never getting on the bus, let us know and we'll take that piece of the route away.
We could, but we can't hold anybody to that. And so what we have done is that we run routes that go through every neighborhood and by every home that students live in. And then we have overloaded all of those runs. If everybody tried to come out for that, for bus 18, that is on the route, bus 18 would be overcrowded. So we've calculated that in mathematically rather than asking individually, because you couldn't hold somebody to what they told you in September. If their high school student got in trouble and the parents took away their driver's license, we would then have to change the routes if we didn't do it the way we did it to now go down that cul-de-sac. And we don't go into cul-de-sacs if we don't have riders, but we will when necessary, and we go by every cul-de-sac.
I was thinking the one time I had one car was at the shop, I would take my daughter to school, she'd have to take the bus home. She hated it as a senior, but sometimes you gotta do it.
Yes, and in addition to that, it's a number of years ago now, but the board will remember when we did work on the bus routes and we began to more frequently use neighborhood stops. So often now, we don't go into cul-de-sacs anymore. Everybody in that cul-de-sac, your board policies have walking distances, and they're different for elementary, middle, and high school. So the elementary run may go into a long cul-de-sac because the policy requires it, but the middle and high school runs just stop at the end and any student is required to walk out to a common neighborhood stop. That was a big change when we went through it. We had a number of challenges. We had to visit a number, but the community's become more used to it, and we get far fewer complaints about the neighborhood stops now than we did at the time when we instituted them.
On transportation, the regular bus line is justified by the 17% increase. Could you explain the over 50% increase in, sorry, 100% increase in vocational, agricultural, and vinyl?
So there was a change to the school start times at Vinyl and VOAG, and we can no longer run one bus out there. So we have to run 2 vehicles. And right now we're budgeting it as 2 full-size buses. That may not,
Based on enrollment, we may be able to do 1 large bus.
well.
We're still gonna have to do 2 small buses. We're looking at the opportunity to run 2 vans, and we're hopeful to be able to bring you a proposed reduction. So that's the explanation for the increase. The 2 schools now start at different times, and we needed to double the runs. But if we can do it with 2 vans instead of 2 full-size buses, we're looking into that, and we might be able to report out to you a recommendation on that Monday night.
In the last year or so, we haven't had anyone at VOAG, so we didn't have to run the 2 buses, and now this year we're running a bus and a van or a smaller bus. So we're getting clarification for the future or next year's enrollment and.
Interesting, there's no districts that pool. Like, there's no way for
Addison.
Branford, Madison, all these neighboring districts to pool buses for VOAG.
We pool for we pool for ECA. We run a common transportation for ECA where we stop in various towns between here and New Haven for the ECA run. And we're currently not doing one, I think, for the ones that you just named. No,
And we're talking about one student, is that?
Um,
I want to be careful about answering that question in
Yeah,
public.
I-
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are required to
But
provide.
it's a minimal amount of students. What I'm getting at is,
it's not enough for a full bus.
can we explore the
pool?
option of pooling?
Yeah, yes, and we're looking into the option of doing smaller vehicles as well.
Other topics, other questions?
Dr. Bellistraci,
Yes.
after the conversation on Tuesday, we have been working, we're going to continue working tomorrow. But we anticipate that we will be able to come in with a list of topics for discussion on Monday evening that will come close to being $1.5 million worth of conversations.
Okay.
I'm not coming in making recommendations to cut $1.6 million, but
Right.
there are a number of items on there. We're hopeful to have some transportation items that will be there. There will be a number of FTEs that we will want to be discussing. We will be putting them out for discussion, and I'll be able to tell you on every item whether it's something that I can recommend or whether it's something that I feel requires public discussion, but that I am not putting forward as a recommendation, just
Okay.
something that I know needs conversation.
Okay,
And again, if we took everything on the list that we're going to bring to you, it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 1.5 or 1.6 million, which was a number that I heard us talking about Tuesday evening.
2%.
Yes, I am absolutely not recommending, I'm not suggesting that we're
Understood.
coming forward on Monday night with an easy 2%
No,
reduction. That is
understood.
not and I'm setting the board up for
get it.
difficult
No, we
decisions.
get
And
it.
no, but appreciate it because as you know, we've all done this together for several years. Each of us is looking at this book. You're hearing us asking questions, right? We're thinking, oh, what about this? And some of the responses suggest that's a possibility, and other responses suggest that's really not going to work. And all of you know that detail a little better about each budget line, and so can bring those discussion topics to us.
yes, and to
So
Dr.
that's
Hirsch's
appreciated.
And to Dr. Hirsch's point, this wasn't the budget year we're living in now. We're not sitting on a padded budget. We
No.
didn't easily find $1.5 million that we can show to you that are going to be easy reductions for any of you to wrestle with. And I apologize for that upfront.
Well, I'm not sure that, I don't think you need an apology for the reality of
How
what
I
we're
feel.
looking at. No, I hear you. All right, I
want to have a conversation about potential special meetings.
Sure.
Because there's a very good chance that we come out of Monday's meeting not ready to make any real decisions.
right, and we can then wait until our regular meeting, February 9th,
Okay.
to vote. But certainly,
It's the date to get to the Board of Finance again.
well, we have.
Monday the 9th is about our
It's
last
it's the last
opportunity.
opportunity because Linda on the 10th.
Yeah.
Has to wrap it up in a
Okay.
bow and,
So all I'm getting at is after Monday's meeting, should we feel like we need additional conversation before the next regular meeting? That's when we'll have a conversation about potential.
yeah. Now, if we were feeling right now, like we are absolutely gonna need 3 more discussions. We could identify a special meeting right now. If on Monday we feel like another, I just want to be clear that we are probably looking at, we have a couple of negotiation
Yeah,
meetings.
I'm just gonna remind the
We're
board.
probably looking at Thursday.
Tuesday evening, we have a mediation date set with the custodial union.
And
Wednesday
Wednesday we have
evening, we have negotiations scheduled with our nurses. And I apologize, but Thursday evening I will be traveling. And so
Okay.
it's going to be difficult to add an additional evening next week before that on the 9th. Now, the rest of the team might be available to meet with you Thursday evening to continue doing work as a board, deliberating
where
among
we are.
yourselves
Yeah,
and getting
okay.
answers from our team. You don't need me to do your own
No,
deliberation.
I think we see where we are and then, you know.
That's right,
quite
but it's
honestly,
really good to
We
think
might have a
about
long
it.
regular meeting set up, so.
Yeah,
maybe-
but it's-
Maybe keep it brief.
No, but
I
it's
think
really
the
good
rest
to
of
think
the
about
meeting
it
on the
now.
9th needs to be a relatively light agenda for
Okay,
the night.
good.
But what we are identifying then is that, if on Monday, we determine it would be very helpful to have an additional special meeting, we're looking at Thursday night. We may not get all 9 of us, understanding that people may have other commitments, but that's something we should keep in mind.
Okay. And I won't be joining you,
And-
but
and that's-
some of
that's
the
right.
rest, some of the rest of the team for sure will be able to be.
And obviously, that's not ideal, but I also do want to make sure if we need more time to talk and deliberate, that we take it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have some.
For sure.
A lot of discussion based on possible reduction, so.
Yeah.
But we have a second level of budget thinking that we always do. After we go to the Board of Finance,
Correct.
we always come back and have to cut the budgets. Okay, and whether we agree with it or not. So I'm concerned that how do we have a conversation with the public who can begin to understand what we've already cut and its consequences, much less the consequences of cutting even further if we're forced to by the Board of Finance, so that we just don't go out for a vote where there's been a vacuum of information. And that I'm arguing that we either start going to the elementary schools in each district at some point for explanation and feedback, so that people understand this year, the implications of the budget are horrendous. Even where we are now, we are hurting, we are doing harm. And we're not even close yet to getting to where we need to be. So how do we have a conversation so people aren't angry out of not knowing?
I always offer to go to all 7 of the PTOs, and in the past, some board members have joined me, but that is usually after the Board of Finance has set the budget and before the April referendum.
Right.
I'm not sure how we fit that in before the Board of Finance finalizes a budget. We've always done that before the April referendum, but after the Board of Finance has acted usually.
And I do, this is not, Dick and, directly in response to what you're saying. I do just want to say out loud to the community, that the board of, once our budgets, the town and the Board of Ed go to the Board of Finance, the Board of Finance does hold a public forum for, comments on either or both of those
Yes.
budget, depending on what the speakers want to request, and you're seeing me flurry through my book to get to the schedule. Just as a piece of information, March 3rd. But.
That's the big public meeting where both the town side and the school side are presented, and the Board of Finance acts on the final budget after that public presentation.
But the problem with that is nobody knows in the public what the consequences of the budget that goes to the Board of Finance is. So the reason to show up is by accident. So I'm arguing that until we got people know the consequences of whether we're reducing teachers or counselors or what have you, people will not show up at a Board of Finance meeting. They don't now. So what I don't want to happen is we go out with a budget even after Board of Finance, it could get voted down simply because people aren't well versed. And then we have to cut a much larger number than we would have if they had understood it in the first place. So that how do we educate the larger community to what the school system's facing in light of the fact that we're not padding, okay, and we're not trying to raise the budget at a certain point. We've already cut the budget before these conversations. And there are 5 or 6 positions that are no longer in here.
8. This budget has 8 fewer positions in it, 7 fewer teaching positions than the current year that we're in.
Well, we could certainly think about how to, try to bring greater attention, to this process. Certainly, we can think about that, absolutely.
I mean, it's in some sense, it's the board's responsibility for initiating that. It's our budget. we're being informed by the superintendent, so we can't rely on the superintendent to initiate that. We have to, it's a board obligation.
Any other questions, topics for tonight? All right, a reminder that again, as each of us is looking and thinking, if questions come up, you want to email them to me, I will pass them on to Linda. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm more than willing to do that. So definitely kind of send them over and we can send them on to Linda. We are next meeting, on Monday, February 2nd in this room at 7:30.
It's a special meeting. The only agenda item is work on the budget.
Is the work on the budget. I do want to, before we close, because we did have just a small number of folks who commented or presented to us at the beginning of this meeting. Once again, invite anyone who has not had a chance to speak to the board, but wanted to tonight as part of the public forum to come on up. I ask you to just give your name and address, and please, limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come on up, thank you. I think there's also a pad there. You can wait until you're done talking just to put that down. Helps with minutes. Thanks so much.
Sure, thank you. I'm sorry, it's probably very unorganized. Well, they work in healthcare, so I'll do my best.
No problem.
One commentary, Dr. Best. Maybe sort of an email blast might be helpful, because that might be some way to kind of just plant a seed for people to at least have a little niggle in the back of their mind to say, maybe I should look at the YouTube of this meeting. Or, I mean, we don't ever
Right.
really know the amount of effort that you all put in there. Some of us that spend more time here or listening appreciate it more than others, but might
Yeah.
be a thought to just be a quick,
Right.
reminder or something.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Just a thought.
okay.
So thank you very much. And I also want to thank you all for the challenges that you overcame for adding financial literacy in a much larger way, because that has been major win in our household.
Good.
So thank you again for that. I do have some concerns that it feels like some of the things that could possibly be discussed, and again, I don't have the privilege of hearing what you all discuss behind closed doors. Not much information has come out about reducing any kind of athletic funding or ice time. I appreciate the hockey players come up here very regularly. They're really advocating for themselves, and I appreciate that. But to hear that textbooks are being cut and academic positions are being cut, or special ed resources are being cut, and then there's not even a discussion, which may have happened again behind closed doors, but we're not hearing that.
So
And-
please keep
I was just gonna say, so I'm just, it's just a concern for those of us. I'm looking just at the program of studies, trying to imagine what is the one FTE that's going away in the high school, what resource, what classes are gonna go away. I mean, I have a student who's gone through Spanish, frankly, since kindergarten. And my understanding is there's a few students that are gonna continue on potentially to AP Spanish. Is that gonna be the class? Because he has a very high expectation of the schools he's looking at for university. And they expect him to take 4 years in high school of language. And it's concerning to think that we have no idea. So we want to know now if that's going to be the situation. Also, the class of 27 is the class of new things. Cell phone policy being the next one. It was very popular in my house with me, not so popular with my son. But I can just tell you there's a lot of things, and I can appreciate Principal Hamill, former Principal Hamill, being here. Because they went through no Camp Hazen, no escape room, COVID happened, encephalitis. I mean, no field trips. This class has had every limited challenge from the time they were full day kindergarten students, the first class, all the way through to now. So I just feel like I can tell you from my household, they feel like they did not have the opportunities to really get surveyed themselves. What is important to them? Why is this helpful? I can tell you my executive functioning challenged child uses it for a very specific thing. I understand there are exceptions. I just think that including them in some of these decisions as we're now about to send them off to colleges in a year or two would have been a better approach to that. And also just in general, it just feels like there's certain things that we are I understand last meeting Tuesday, you talked about things that you can do to improve sort of the executions within Guilford schools. Science is one of them. It is really not, there's just not as many offerings as there could or should be.
Okay.
And there's a lot of creative arts. I think it's fabulous. But when you look at the number of creative arts and the number of sciences, it's a little embarrassing. And it's challenging when you have a STEM kid, that there
Alright.
just aren't other options, that we have to
Alright.
go to universities to try to find that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? All right. So again, apologies for duplication, but I just want to make sure everyone's clear on our next steps. So this board will be meeting again this coming Monday, February 2nd, 7:30, Guilford High School Library and Media Center. The sole topic that night is our discussion of the budget. We expect to be taking a final vote on the budget at our regular Board of Ed meeting on Monday, February 9th, also here at the high school at 7:30. If we determine that we need additional time to discuss, we will consider scheduling a Board of Ed special meeting for next Thursday, February 5th. Thank you. But we will determine that, if we determine that on Monday night, that will be posted. Just like all of these meetings, they are public meetings. Even if there's not a public forum that is part of it, the public is always invited to hear all of our deliberations. And then lastly, if you know of people, because they're not watching or aren't able to be here, that have things they want to share, please encourage them to email the board. We all have email addresses on the Guilford Public Schools website. We are always open to hearing public input, especially when we're making decisions on behalf of this community, school community and town community. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am gonna entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. Good night.